Well, I'm Toby.
And I'm Savannah.
And this is our official Star Wars ranking from a certain point of view. So clearly our opinions on what order we like them in. We won't include Solo or Rogue One just because they aren't episodic movies. We're only doing the 9 episodes. When there's more Star Wars stories out there, we can rank all the Star Wars stories separately. I just think it's unfair to rank those with those just because the episodic movies are the Skywalker saga. They have everything to do with those, and Solo and Rogue One, while still kind of intertangled with the Skywalker saga, they are their own thing separately and different. So,
we also wouldn't include the shows in this, or
we're not including the shows. We could do a show one later. We're not gonna do that right now. But if you guys want to see how we rank the shows, find out. Clearly, we like the Clone Wars since that's always been in the background. But let's further ado. Let's start off and see what we got for ranking.
Our lists are not going to be exactly the same. For the first half, they're pretty much the same. But we're actually going to have very different lists overall.
And my top 3 will change throughout every day. Just depends on what I feel. But it's always one of these. The top 3 are always the top 3. So, yeah. All right. So to start it off with, we both picked. I'm pretty sure you guys saw this coming if you watched our channel before. The Last Jedi, we did put at the end of our list.
Yeah, we're going from bottom to top.
Bottom to top. So worst to best. Probably should have said that beforehand.
Yeah,
so worst to best. So clearly I put Last Jedi at number 9. Actually, after watching episode 9 as many times as I did, I get more upset with The Last Jedi and what it should have been. And I can kind of see the vision that Abrams would have had for this movie. I'm somebody who grew up with Luke Skywalker being everything. He was my hero, my idol. I didn't like how he was treated. I didn't like how the legacy itself was treated. And I very much felt like this was somebody making a movie that they wanted to make no matter what. He was going to do this no matter what happened in The Force Awakens or anything. This is just almost made as a standalone movie in the middle of a saga and its own trilogy even in the end. So I'll pass it off to Savannah here because I'll get a little upset.
Well, I'm not much better just because, I mean, first of all, they completely sidelined Leia, which was ridiculous. I mean, she's always been one of the most important characters. But the only reason I really liked it all that much growing up, I mean, you know, and for me, I look at it from more of a writing standpoint, more necessarily than the Star Wars, because I obviously know quite a bit less about Star Wars than certain people. But from a writing standpoint, he didn't follow any basic archetypes. He didn't follow the basic idea of conflict. There's like multiple types of conflict. I could do a whole entire video on the types of conflict that he just ignored or pretended to create but then didn't resolve. I mean, he didn't follow so many basic writing structures, and it's quite frustrating to see somebody take all these character arcs and go, well, you know what, I don't like it, so I'm just going to go over here and completely ignore this arc and create a whole new, and that's just not good writing. It's not. Any basic English instructor, any basic writing instructor in high school will tell you that is not how you handle characters. It's just crappy writing. I mean, 100%. It's
Agreed.
Really bad.
Plus, there was no lightsaber contact, and that is just ridiculous. I'm sorry. There needs to be lightsaber contact.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, moving on then.
Because otherwise, it's just gonna keep going.
Yeah, we'll just keep going.
We could do a whole video though.
We don't
want to
piss off anybody that much. Again, everybody will have their own opinions. You'll have your own rankings. Share it in the comments. I'm always interested to find out where other people will put these movies.
I can't promise not to do a whole video breaking down how bad the writing was, though.
We might do that eventually.
Because I could do that.
That's true. So coming in at number 8 for both of us, pretty sure this is what most people would have put it. The Phantom Menace. And again, it's not even to say that this movie is bad, but something has to go there. And overall, a lot of stuff in The Phantom Menace was awesome, and I enjoyed a lot of it. I have a lot of good memories with this movie, going with my grandparents and standing in line at midnight at our hometown theater. I was very excited. I was 9 years old. I was just so excited to see a new Star Wars. Darth Maul was cool. Qui-Gon Jinn was awesome. I don't hate Anakin as much as everybody does as a kid, and I don't hate Jar Jar that much because in the end, even though he was annoying, he served a purpose. So in the end, I thought it came out with a lot of cool characters, but out of all of them, I put it below just for, I don't know really why, I just did. I loved it though still nonetheless.
This is one that could change over time for me. But for now, I have more of a personal vendetta against it. I don't have good memories with this movie because it came out when I was 6, not when I was 9. And when you take a 6-year-old to a movie that talks so much about politics, it's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then I got lost in the theater, which is a whole nother story for another time. But basically, I don't have any good memories of this movie.
Nice. So yeah, overall, I think we both have enjoyed it in the end.
Yeah.
I always look forward. It's what starts off my May the 4th every year. So I'm always excited to start off with this movie.
The score alone might
God.
bump this up on the list at some point for me.
Yeah, John, if we wanted to do scores, that would be a whole nother list.
Oh my God, we should though.
Of all 9 movies. But I thoroughly felt bad putting it as low as I had to, but it had to go somewhere, and overall that's where I thought it should go. And clearly you thought the same, so.
Yeah.
Alright, so number 7.
Again, the same for us.
Same for us, and funnily enough, it is episode 7.
Yep.
The Force Awakens. This one doesn't have the cool movie poster on either side, so Phasma or Kylo. I'm just going to do Phasma. The Force Awakens, when it came out, we actually were together at this point. Not the greatest evening for us. We were living in Wisconsin, and it just wasn't a great living situation, but over time, I have appreciated this movie more and more. Yes, I find it very much of the episode 4. And it's very similar to episode 4. It has a lot of the same motifs and whatnot, but it did have its own thing in the same way. As much as I hated Han Solo dying, it felt right. It felt like it was handled well. And I felt like our original characters were handled well. And that the new characters, while not as super enticing as the original 3, still, I enjoyed them. I loved the fact that there was a stormtrooper dessert. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
They read about that in books in the past, but I'm glad they made it a canon. So I enjoyed that aspect. Over time, I've liked Kylo a lot more in this movie. I know the first time I saw it, I didn't, because I just didn't get that Darth Vader villainous feel.
He didn't like that Kylo was so conflicted right away. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like he needed him to be at the point where he was already menacing and
Yeah,
ready,
that's what
settled and ready to be
and
the
again,
dark side.
that's expectations versus reality. I
Yeah.
expected him to be just straight up villainous right off the bat, but that's not how villains always work. And now, being older and understanding that, I do understand that, and so this movie has grown on me. But yeah.
This one actually, I had a hard time deciding between this one and Phantom Menace. Not because I don't like it. I like, especially like you were saying, the new characters do have that intrigue, and you want to see where they go with them. Like I actually was really interested to see what they would do with Rey and what they would do with Finn, especially with him being a new type of
Rey
a very
was
new type
awesome
of character.
in The Force Awakens.
My biggest thing is I really hate Hollywood's thing about they just can't ever keep a couple together. It's like Hollywood just can't picture a marriage working out ever, apparently. And I just hated the fact that Han and Leia were separated. I thought that was dumb and unnecessary. He could have been off on his own side missions in the books and extended universe, and I know that's not canon, but even in the newer books, like Han and Leia were always off on separate missions. They were off on separate missions all the time. They both had very important things to do. So they were separated, but they were still together. They were just off doing their own thing. So they still could have had him off doing his own thing without separating them and having him be some kind of person who would have just abandoned his wife and kid because things got tough.
Right,
I just thought that was a
exactly.
stupid trope to pull. Like, oh, well, things got tough, so he kind of just ran off.
It just paints him in a bad light, which is just annoying, because Han Solo wasn't that... He maybe would have been that in the past, but that's not who he was now.
Again, they spent the whole entire original trilogy building him up to change and care more about other people than himself. And then we're like, well, now he's going to just care about himself
and he
again.
go up against the Death Star. Like, if you're not going to give up then, why would you give up any other time?
Right. I thought that the way that Han was written wasn't really great, and I feel like I actually didn't mind his death at all, because I do think that somebody would give up like that for their kid. I mean, I think that's believable, but I also feel like as a parent, it's your damn responsibility to be trying to track the kid down the whole time, not just suddenly being like, oh, well, there he is, I guess I'll go talk to him.
Right.
Like,
also, this movie had, one of my biggest complaints was the force powers that Rey was using, the mind trick. You gotta repeat exactly what they say. Like, you can't just make up your own words.
Right.
That's not how the Jedi mind trick works, and any of our other times. But enough about that, on to the next one.
Yeah.
Still, it was a good start for Disney, and could have been a better start, but it was still a decent start for Disney's first movie. So the last movie that we actually have in the same spot is Attack of the Clones. Now, I've heard over time that people actually put Attack of the Clones before or after or before the Phantom Menace, because they're just like, I loved Attack of the Clones. I love the clones. I guess being a teenager when this movie came out really helped me appreciate that relationship between Anakin and Padme. I didn't find it awkward and conflicting because I was a teenager. I was awkward. I was very awkward as a teenager. It was not a good sight. So I connected more with that, and Anakin is by far one of my favorite characters, and I liked seeing this arc, and I love the clones so much. Seeing the clones was some of the coolest thing ever, and just all the menacing, everything that Palpatine had been putting into plan, just coming together perfectly for him. You know, Jar Jar coming in, giving him executive powers to create this clone army. Meeting a fallen Jedi for the first time was so cool that, you know, people can stray from the path and they aren't always as good. And Ewan McGregor in this movie was so funny. Not funny, but he had those good lines where he put things out there perfectly. And seeing Jango Fett was cool, and getting a backstory on Boba Fett, even though, you know, we really didn't get a lot of Boba Fett to begin with, was still cool. Yeah, I did enjoy this movie a lot. And I definitely enjoyed it the first time more than The Force Awakens and any of the other ones that I put on those before this. So,
yeah, I mean, I understand kind of the complaints about the dialogue. I get that it's not the most realistically written dialogue. I just feel like it's in the same vein as any other young adult series you would come across, though. I mean, you come across Twilight and all those, and the dialogue between teenagers, it's not always realistic. It's not always the best dialogue, but you know what? Teenagers, they kind of suck at talking to each other. They're weird. They're awkward. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, and
especially when they have to have their love forbidden.
Yeah, so I didn't really mind it. I didn't find it all that unrealistic. I mean, older women can fall for younger guys, and yeah, he's a bit clingy and needy maybe, but some girls are into that, as weird as that is. I'm not, but some girls are.
Plus we got to see Yoda use his lightsaber for the first
time. Right,
the
lightsaber battles were lightsaber battles were fun, and the end
lightsaber to lightsaber contact.
Yeah. Well, and the ending was fantastic. I really enjoyed that battle at the end there, and then having, you know, all the layers of it, having it just be Padme and Obi-Wan and Anakin trying to escape, and then all the Jedi come in and help them, and then it's like, oh shit, even the Jedi are outnumbered, but then all the clones come in and help. Like, it was, I was exciting.
There's multiple layers to the battle.
Yeah.
Even in the final battle, especially between Yoda and Dooku, it was, well, let's see what we can do with our Force powers, you know, and do that, oh, apparently you're just as evenly matched, or, you know, Dooku's like, well, shit, he's still more powerful than me. Let's see what we can do with lightsabers now, and trying to do that, and then being able to use the Force while in the middle of a duel is very hard to do, and it was impressive to see him do it. So yeah, overall, it would go in the spot of number 6 for both of us, and that's the last time we have the same movie in the same spot.
It's true.
So now this next one, this is hard. These two could easily be switched at any moment in time, especially with whatever I was feeling. She put The Rise of Skywalker here. We don't have that Blu-ray or DVD case, obviously, yet. And I ended up putting Return of the Jedi here. Now, don't get me wrong, Return of the Jedi is by far just such a fantastic movie. It was very well done, and even with all the little hidden things that came out later after, you know, we made the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, I enjoyed this movie. Seeing Luke bring his father back to the light side, and just that whole ending arc to Darth Vader, him bringing balance to the Force, defeating the Empire for now, or the Emperor, and defeating the Empire, and everybody it was a movie that brought hope to everybody, and just a good, fun ending. You know, seeing the Force Ghosts all together at the end with Luke looking at them, and it gave you hope that the galaxy was going to be a better place now. And I really liked that. I think everybody did a fantastic job. I especially loved the opening to this movie. Probably one of my more favorite openings to a movie of the Star Wars. That whole Jabba's palace and everything was just fantastic. So,
I would put Rise of Skywalker lower just because I loved that original ending so much, and I'll get more into that when I say that for the next one. But Rise of Skywalker, why I have it above the ones before is just, you know, I'm not quite as passionate about the first two movies and the prequels, and I'm definitely not very passionate about the first couple movies of the sequels. So to me, this was like the best sequel and ending that we possibly could have gotten to that sequel trilogy. I know it wasn't perfect, and like he said before, we'll get into like the like breakdown of like what we loved and what we didn't love of the movie, but I just think overall it wrapped it up better than I expected it to. I really did. I expected the characters to keep acting annoyingly off from their originals, and they didn't. They actually finally started acting like the original characters that we saw in the original trilogy, and that made me really happy. I loved seeing Carrie Fisher come back, even though they had to use old footage. I still love seeing that. I found Rey's heritage really interesting. I mean, some people are annoyed by it, or I don't know exactly how people feel about it, but I liked that heritage because I wasn't expecting it. I know it was a theory, but it wasn't one that I expected to actually pan out, so I found it really interesting that it did. And I liked the whole concept, especially of their little dyad that they had. I really liked that was interesting to me, that they, and he pointed it out, that he was the grandson of Vader and she was the granddaughter of Palpatine. I mean, they had a very deep connection that way.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I didn't necessarily see it as romantic, but I can see why they took it that way, but I just liked the connection that they had in general, with that being that dynamic of them both being the grandchildren of such dark Force users. You know, it was interesting to me. So I liked it.
Yeah. And we'll go on. Like I said, those two can easily be switched for me, because now in this spot for me, I'm sitting at number 4, sorry, is the Rise of Skywalker. I really enjoyed this movie, mainly because I'm sorry again how much I didn't like The Last Jedi, so this movie fixed that and gave me more hope. I just liked seeing more, and something that's always intrigued me when reading the EU and Legends, whatever one you want to call it, is the unknown regions. I've always found that super interesting, so it was nice to finally go to the unknown regions. And also just being, I think, as old as I am, and being as into it and more knowledgeable about looking for things, I noticed so many more hidden things the first time watching this movie. And just notice things, and seeing you don't expect Wedge Antilles to be coming in at the end. You just didn't see that coming, and Lando coming back, and having Carrie Fisher back in it again, like you said, even though it was old footage. Just seeing her again just was so exciting.
Seeing Chewie get his goddamn medal, like
seeing Chewie get that goddamn medal was just fantastic. Again, like you said, it's not the best ending to a saga ever, but it's the best one we could have got with what had happened in our last trilogy. I felt that underneath the enormous amount of pressure that JJ was getting from us as fans, the studio, and maybe even George Lucas was giving him some pressure. He had a lot on his shoulders to bring all of this to a conclusion.
And he went to George Lucas for a lot of it.
Exactly, and that's what I really loved, that he went to George Lucas and asked for help. I thought that was a big step on his part, that he wanted help. He's like, I can't do this alone. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And again, I could switch Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker anytime, because in the end, they both give you that same sort of hope in the end, that same sort of liberation and just excitement to see a galaxy, from a far, far away galaxy, that this galaxy has hope again. And so I again, like I said, they're both interchangeable for me. It was really hard to even put either one into a spot. But I felt like since neither one of us were putting, any of the sequel trilogy higher, I really wanted to put one higher, and I felt that this one did earn it at least. It's not just me giving it. Again, my one complaint is the goddamn Jedi mind trick. Like, you gotta repeat what they say. You can't just make up your own stuff. That being said, go over to Savannah.
I would always put Return of the Jedi higher, just because not that I really liked a lot of aspects of the Rise of Skywalker, but I always have loved that dynamic between Luke and Vader in those last scenes, and I like like you said, I like the original version better, where he doesn't say no, but you just see the conflict, even though you can't actually see his face, you can see the conflict.
You can feel that conflict within him, like Luke.
Yeah, yes. Before he finally picks the Emperor up and throws him over. That whole scene was just done so beautifully. It was just it was such a good scene, and I at the point in my life where I watched it, I was I was a teenager. I was the brooding teenager when I had seen it when I was younger, but I didn't remember it. I had to rewatch all of them when I was older. And so rewatching it again, I kind of needed that happy ending, because teenagers are just so dramatic all the time.
They need that.
I just needed it. I needed that. So this actually was my number one for a long time because I needed that happy ending. Like I needed to know that Han and Leia were going to get married and go off and have lots of babies and all that shit. And I needed to know that Luke was going to win. And I needed to know all that stuff. So that was my number one for a long time. Over time, as I've become less of a brooding teenager, it's fallen a few places just because I didn't love the Ewoks. I watched at a point in my life where I was too old to love the Ewoks.
Ewoks are awesome.
They're okay. And I don't hate the Ewoks. I'm not as fond of them as seeing them at 6 or 7 years old you would be. Yeah. So, but I didn't love the Ewoks. That whole part threw me off a little bit, like enough for it to fall over time, but it wouldn't fall any farther than number 4. That's for sure. Like because it's just the ending was just so well done. I mean, I don't think I could ever put it lower than this.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, on to number 3. And for these, totally any day, you could ask me tomorrow, and I might even say these 3 are different. I think I actually changed the list once before we even decided to do this video. After we made the list originally, and then before we did the video, I changed it really quick. These 3 could just go anywhere for me, and we'll just start it off. At number 3, I put The Empire Strikes Back. I really did enjoy The Empire Strikes Back. The storytelling alone in this movie is great. Finding out the parentage of Luke as Vader. Gets one of their best lines ever, I know, from Han and Leia. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. The score and just the imagery of everything. Han and Leia's relationship slowly budding out through this whole movie. The little things you see Han do to kind of show that he's jealous and that, he's like, God, why am I so jealous? I'm actually into this princess here, the princess and a smuggler. It's just so, taboo back, that's princesses marry princes or princesses, whatever. I enjoyed this movie. Hoth is probably one of my favorite battles in the original trilogy. I loved it. A snow planet, I thought that was cool. I'm from Minnesota, so me and my friends would go outside all the time. One would stand on a hill and be like, Tobey, you will go to Subway and get a sandwich, the Dagobah system or something. We just had a lot of fun with it. And it was a lot. This is my dad's favorite movie out of all of them, this is actually the first one I watched with my dad all those years ago when I was 4, and it just I did enjoy it. I thought the bounty, we see Boba Fett, the bounty hunters were cool. Vader, I think at the time when I first saw it, I was young to see all the conflicting part, but just learning that he's his dad, it's like, what the fuck? I thoroughly enjoy Empire Strikes Back, and like I said, this could be number 1 tomorrow in my mind. It's however I'm feeling, so I'll hand it off to Savannah now.
For my number 3, I picked A New Hope. This is the original. I love it. It's so iconic. It's hard to put it at number 3. Well, I'll talk about the other 2 and why the other 2 are higher on the list than this one, but obviously it's going to be at least at number 3 because it is the original and because it is, just such a, it's just such a damn good movie.
Yeah,
it's just a damn good movie.
New Hope is by far.
Yeah.
You'll know.
It's a damn good movie.
You'll see where I put it on the list soon enough. You only got 2 spots left, so it's only got 1 of 2.
It really is. I think when I was younger, I didn't quite get it, and so it didn't really click with me for a long time. But when I rewatched it, I got older, I rewatched the whole trilogy again, just because I kept telling myself, okay, I need to actually watch these and comprehend them, and, I didn't remember any of them, and I wasn't understanding the references people were getting, and I wasn't, I needed to rewatch them all again, and when I actually finally did rewatch this one, I was like, damn, I really should have rewatched these, 2 or 3 years ago. Or should have just kept watching them, but my parents weren't quite as big of Star Wars. My dad's a huge Star Wars fan, but I lived with my mom, so I didn't watch them quite as much. She doesn't hate Star Wars, but it's just not her thing. So I didn't watch them as much. It wasn't on all the time. Our thing was we always watched Harry Potter and stuff, so that was more of our... but then rewatching this again, it was just... It got me obviously hooked enough to watch the rest of the original trilogy and finally get into Star Wars and finally, look into the lore and look into things and... before I luckily look into it enough to where I was acceptable for...
I did dump somebody once because she didn't like Star Wars. Sorry. It's a big part of my life. always has been.
It was nice. I didn't have to get into Star Wars to.
Right, she already was.
Match, yeah.
So we'll use that as our into the next one. So for number 2, I ended up putting Revenge of the Sith there. When this movie came out back in 2005, I was right in the target audience for this. I loved it. Being that teenager at that time, I was kind of always in that darky, broody. So this movie, being as dark as it was phenomenal. I loved the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. It was something that was so anticipated, and I just couldn't wait to get to that part. But everything in between was awesome. Seeing more of the Clone Wars going on, seeing that it's one of the most exciting and just epic entrances into the Star Wars movies is boom, right into this. You see the 2 Jedi starfighters flying, they're calm, then all of a sudden, boom, you're just thrust into some crazy space battle that's been going on for at least, at least 2 hours. And they're just in there and they're just flying around and you're watching the quips between Obi-Wan and Anakin and Obi-Wan and Grievous, and just watching Palpatine just testing Anakin, seeing when the right moment is to say this certain line or to push him that one step closer to the dark side. Using Anakin's anger when Anakin didn't even realize he was being, manipulated into using his anger. I really just loved all of that. The slow manipulation of Palpatine. I'm somebody who loves the game Risk, so I'm all about that slow roll, that slow game, not gain. It all paid off for him in the end. This movie ended. If you hadn't seen, if you watched them in numerical order, 1, 2, 3, for the first time, you would end with this movie being like, well, shit, the galaxy's in the worst turmoil ever. This is the worst. This is not a happy ending, even though, Leia and Luke are going off to their respective places. And that was different, in most movies. The bad guys don't win like that. And the bad guys won in this movie, no matter what you say. I know that Luke and Leia were the next hopes and whatnot. Palpatine and Vader and the Empire won. They straight up won.
Well, yeah, they won for like 20 years
exactly.
before
they
that
got
finally.
everything they would worked hard for. Palpatine, it paid off. It just goes to show you work hard, you put in the time and effort, and you can literally do almost anything, even take over an entire galaxy. So enough about that. Let's Savannah see what she did for her number 2.
I put Empire Strikes Back for my number 2. I actually had a hard time deciding between this and A New Hope because A New Hope is such a damn good movie. But I think what puts this a little bit higher for me again is that, like you were saying, that the way that they developed Han and Leia's relationship, they did a really good job with it. And I actually didn't know much about the I love you, I know, because again, I was rewatching it as I got a little older. I didn't know as much about I feel like I'd heard people quote it before, but I didn't actually understand what they were quoting. And finally, when I saw it, I was like, it's kind of a jackass thing to say, but I like it.
But it works.
But it works, and it just made me. I mean, it made me that intrigued. I needed to know. Like you said, it doesn't end on the most hopeful note. It's not quite as dim an ending as that. They didn't totally lose, but Luke got his ass kicked, and Han was frozen in carbonite, and I was like, what the heck?
Right.
I need to know what's going to happen. Like, it was just such a crazy ending to me. I obviously knew that Vader was Luke's father, but other than that, I didn't really actually know a ton of the spoilers. I didn't know that Luke was going to get his ass kicked, and I didn't, So it was actually fun to...
Should've waited.
It was fun to rewatch that as a teenager and just be like, well, shit, now I need to know exactly what's going to happen. Like, I literally did... I think it was 2 seconds between watching this one and watching Return of the Jedi because I had to know what happened.
Yeah. That's fair.
So it was just, it was good.
Yeah. This one, Revenge of the Sith, also has my second favorite shot, with Anakin storming the Jedi Temple of the 501st, with the music going on in the background. It's just by far one of it's my second favorite shot of the entire saga. So our number 1 picks, clearly if you guys have been paying attention and following along, you already know what they're going to be. Mine is clearly A New Hope. I mean, this is the movie that started off everything for me. It was March 4th, 1994. It was snowing. It was just a bad day outside. I couldn't go outside and play, so I had to do something. I went to the living room and it's like, I'll just watch a movie. And I saw A New Hope, a Star Wars, and I was like, oh, I've never seen this. Let's just see what the pictures on the front look cool, and space, and I was into space back then and always have been. And I watched this movie and I remember it ending. I rewound it, I watched it again, it ended again, and I rewound it and I watched it again. This movie set off everything for me. It completely captured who I was. I lived on the outskirts of a town. I looked at sunsets all the time. Luke was a farm boy. I worked on my uncle's farm. I didn't live there, but I worked on there when he needed help. I connected with Luke instantaneously. I felt him. You know, it was such a long way into town, and I just wanted to go hang out with my friends. But no, I had to do chores all the time. Not saying I didn't get to play with my friends, and then we hung out still. But I just connected on so many levels with him, with Luke in this movie, and it captivated my 4-year-old little heart. And I never let go of it. I have never ever stopped loving Star Wars ever since that. I didn't care how much I got bullied in high school and in middle school for saying it. I never once said I don't like Star Wars. This movie was it was everything that I'd ever think I'd been looking for. And, you know, it showed that, even though this isn't from this movie saga, that you can really change your stars. You can be a nobody on a desert backward planet and end up saving the galaxy and being more important than you ever know. And it just gave me that hope that I could do something beyond my wildest dreams. I didn't have to be sitting back home sniping womp rats out of my T-16 out of Beggar's Canyon. I could go off and join an academy or go fight in the Star Wars, you know?
Find a princess that's not your sister.
Exactly. This movie was about rebellion and romance, and that has always been my life. I am a rebel at heart and always have been. Ask my parents, they know. Just everything about this movie I love. The first second I see Darth Vader walking on that screen, I was like, oh my god, that is a bad guy. And learning about the Jedi, like with Luke learning about the Jedi, I mean, this is what gave us everything. This movie was everything. This was, even with the Luke, you look at Lucas from this movie, he was somebody who did it the way he wanted to do it. You know, he stayed to his creative talents. He didn't let studio interference come in.
So much so that he didn't think it was going to be successful.
Yeah, so much that he was in Hawaii thinking nobody would like this movie, writing Raiders of the Lost Ark with Steven Spielberg. And then it blew up, and it became a cultural phenomenon for the next 42 years, and it's going to keep going. I mean, now I walk on the street wearing Star Wars stuff, and I even find people that bullied me back in high school are like, man, dude, Star Wars, I mean, it's so great. And it is. Star Wars is fantastic, and I mean, it's my life. This movie totally shaped who I am to this day. Luke Skywalker and all of them. Again, that's because I love this movie so much is the reason why I think I hated The Last Jedi so much. Because Luke was my everything. He was the idol. He was somebody, like I said, who I knew that I could go on and do more in my life and be something that I never thought I could be. And I'll keep going, but I thoroughly love this movie. I remember my dad coming out in the living room being like, what have you been doing for the last 6 hours? I was like, I've been watching Star Wars. And it's amazing. He's like, you watched all 3? And I was like, there's 3? I was like, I've just watched the 1. And then we watched The Empire Strikes Back right away after that, and then Return of the Jedi. So very good moments with my father. This movie was everything for me, and if I could, that would be one moment that I would want to relive over and over and over again. If I could have the nostalgia pills from the Watchmen TV show, I would want the one of 4-year-old Tobey watching this for the first time. If I ever lose my memory of who I am and stuff, my wife knows to just show me this movie, because at least then she can see that pure excitement, because I know if I forgot who I was, I would still love this movie to the end of the world. A New Hope was everything for me, and it always has been. It's the one that I think truly that I get the most excited about on May 4th. I can't wait to get to A New Hope. As much as I love Revenge of the Sith and just all of them in general, this is the one that I get excited every time I get to watch it, and it's the one I've seen the most out of all of them, because it's the one I saw the first. So I'll let Savannah go now.
You know, you can say these are interchangeable, but I'm sorry, A New Hope is always.
I know.
Here.
I love A New Hope. It's a space opera about rebellion and romance. What more do you want in a movie? I mean, that's everything. I got you going again.
I'm
I
sorry.
I think A New Hope was beyond its years. I think it came out way before it even should have come out, and I think it grabbed just the perfect audience. I think if this movie had come out in the early 70s, it wouldn't have been as popular. And maybe if it came out later in the 80s, it wouldn't have captivated. I think that 77 crowd, they needed something. Elvis had just died already. I mean, we lost the king. I mean, we needed something to grab onto as a society, as a culture, and I think Star Wars gave us that.
I'm sorry, I got you going.
I mean, I know, you totally did get me going again. It's always been my favorite. Watching Obi-Wan and Vader fight with lightsabers, just learning about lightsabers in general. Space wizards and everything. I mean, this movie, I think we did trivia for the Rise of Skywalker for before showings at our movie theater that we go to. I think the New Hope had the most slides and the most questions.
Had like 70.
Just because it's the one I poured so much knowledge into and what I've learned from. And again, I mean, if I could right now, I would just turn this around my house and you would see. This is the movie that started off everything. 29 years of collecting is because of this movie right here. So now let's let Savannah go.
That's okay. No, that was my fault. I got you going again.
It's true. Don't get me going. I love this movie so much.
My number one that a lot of people are going to argue with is Revenge of the Sith. But you know what? The Star Wars theory guy agrees with me. So,
Shout out to him.
This was my number one. Again, a similar reason though was because of the point in my life when I watched it. That's horrible, I know, but I did not actually watch Revenge of the Sith until, how old is she now? So it's like 3 years ago.
I'm sorry, guys. I tried.
Like I said, I had a very bad experience when I went to see The Phantom Menace in theaters, which was more to do with like getting lost than the actual movie. But then it's like you held that grudge, and it's stupid, but I did, and so I just never watched the prequels. I was like, you know what? I don't like Jar Jar, and I don't. I'm mad, and so I'm not going to watch it, and when I rewatched the original trilogy, I did kind of think, and I was like, you know what, I probably should go back and watch the prequels too, and I just never quite got around to it.
That's fair.
Because I was a teenage girl, and I just didn't think about it. I think I would have enjoyed the hell out of these as a teenager too, so I kind of wish I would have, but anyways, I digress. So I didn't watch this until 3 years ago, and at the point where I watched it, I was about 6 or 7 months pregnant. And I think that actually really made me connect with this a lot, because I connected with that stress of the idea of what becoming a parent can do to stress the hell out of you. It was really, I think, easy for me to connect with. Not that I was going crazy or anything, not that he was going crazy or anything, and to make him look like some kind of bad person, that's not what was going on. But it did. I mean, the pressure that you feel, the idea of what, like, the fear of losing family can do to you. I mean, it was very, very easy to connect to at that point in my life because I was pregnant. And I think also, when you're pregnant, you are kind of similar to a teenager, and that you kind of do look for more of those dark and depressing movies because, might as well get a good cry every day. You're going to cry anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're going to cry for no reason. Yeah. You might as well have a reason. So I think I connected with it on a very, very personal level, just because of what I was going through. And again, being pregnant again, I've watched it like 3 more times because you connect with it. I mean, at least I did, like crazy. And just that the battle, even not being pregnant, the battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin is just, I mean, Jesus, it's the longest. It's the longest
sword duel in any movie.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm pretty sure that still stands today. If we're wrong, throw that down in the comments. But I'm pretty sure in movie history, this is still the longest sword duel.
Yeah.
That there is.
And it's amazingly choreographed, and just the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan too. That really got me too, because I remember sitting there thinking the first time I watched it, like, Jesus, I felt so bad for Obi-Wan because he literally left him saying, may the force be with you, and like they left on just such a high note of like he was
Goodbye,
so proud of
friend.
him, and they'd been through so much together. I mean, I hadn't quite seen as much yet, but even going through the Clone Wars now, you even see even more, like they'd been through so much together. They really were like brothers, and it was so hard to see him lose that, to go from like that awesome goodbye and everything's totally fine, we're good, and then coming back and like, oh, he just killed a bunch of people.
A youngling.
Like, I just can't imagine, like, Obi-Wan's got to be like, what the hell happened? Right. I was gone for, like, 3 days. Mm-hmm. Probably more than that, but still. It felt like only 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Obi-Wan was pretty farther out there in the mid-rim, so.
But it felt like it wasn't very long. So, and I feel like to him, he was probably like,
just suck.
Guys, what did you do?
What the hell just happened here?
Yeah. It was very operatic. I think I like that aspect of it too. And the music.
Space opera about rebellion.
And the music, again, okay, we're going to have to do a video for the music because I could go on about the music in
John
this
Williams
too.
did a great job in that. I got to go again. I'm sorry. There's more I got to say about this. With A New Hope, it's especially like before that, you know, I hadn't really seen any movies with strong females in it. So in my Imagine playtime, when I played with the neighborhood kids and we all played together, I was like, yeah, we need to save the girls. Like, they need us. They need men to save them. And you see this, and you just see Princess Leia take charge. And, I mean, just the first time you see her on screen, I was starstruck. I was just like, wow, that's the woman I want to marry in the end of the world. And I was deeply in love with her right out the bat. And just seeing her take charge and like, hey, I'm the one that's going to save us. And stand up to Tarkin and Vader and all of that. You know, you saw so much from her. And then you had Han Solo, the smuggler. You know, he's the wisecracker. And that's who I kind of was, this guy, like the wisecracker. So I love that. I connected with all three of these characters right off the bat. And this movie has my favorite shot in Star Wars, which, funnily enough, is George Lucas's favorite shot. And it's when Luke Skywalker is looking over the dunes of Tatooine at the Twin Suns with the binary sunset playing just around him. That is by far my favorite shot of Star Wars. That's when, like, during that movie, I remember just everything inside of me. I was uplifted and just so like, yes, it's by far my favorite shot of Star Wars. To this day, out of all 11 films, even including now Rogue One and Solo, it's still, I mean, with everything we have now is because of this movie. This movie was everything. And I feel like a lot of people put it down farther than it should be, but again, I think having such the love that I end up having for Star Wars is why I put this movie so high, because I think even if I would have seen Empire or Return of the Jedi first, I don't think I would have been as captivated. First of all, you'd be starting in the middle of a story.
Well, yeah.
And I think this saga itself is what also has caused me to be such a continuity person, where I watch things in order. Even if you know they're not going to connect to the even TV shows. People are like, you don't have to watch it. It won't do anything for you. It's like, fine. It doesn't matter. I'm going to watch things in order. And I think that's because of Star Wars, for sure. So I could keep going on for like another 45 minutes about just A New Hope alone. But I think we're already at a decent amount of time, so we should probably cut ourselves off. Go ahead, tell us what you thought. You know, if you liked our ranking, or tell us who your ranking is down in the comments. You know, I'm always interested to find out what other people thought. And I love reading the comments, so even if they're negative and you don't like us, I don't really care. I like reading your comment anyway, so. But yeah, this has been our official Star Wars ranking. I hope you've watched all the movies, otherwise we gave stuff away, but I still think if you're watching this kind of list, you should have seen all the movies. And yeah, this movie is why we're even here doing this today, because of, clearly you can see my love for movies in general behind us. So yeah. So until next time, may the films be with you.